Right, I think we should be going live now.
Looks like it. I've got a little message at the top of my screen. So,
Yeah.
right, everybody, welcome. For the benefit of anybody watching us on YouTube, this is the Tavistock Town Council Development Management and Licensing Committee. And just as a reminder to anyone who might be watching, this committee is a statutory consultee. We are not the planning authority. We don't have the authority to grant or refuse planning applications, but we are invited to comment on all the applications that come into Tavistock Parish. And as usual, I'm going to sort of ask you to confirm that you can hear me and obviously indicate that you're here. So I'm going to actually do it by name. So starting with Councillor Squire.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Councillor Johnson.
Yes, I can hear you fine, thank you.
Councillor Parker.
I can hear you and I think I'm here.
Well, you're on my screen. Councillor Ellis.
I can hear you.
Councillor Smith.
Loud and clear, Paul.
Councillor Lewis.
The referee's in the building.
Jolly good. And Councillor Hutton.
No, he's Hudson now.
Andy, can you hear me? I think not. Andy. I've got a lovely view up your nose. Andy, have you got a problem?
I'm ringing him. Yeah, Paul's trying to check that you can hear everything. Obviously, you can't. So, okay. Okay, mate. Cheers. Bye. Right. Andy says that. Sorry, Andy. Yeah, Andy says that he's in Bristol on his son's computer. It's obviously not working at the moment, so he will try something else and join us as quickly as you can.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Then if I could ask you to mute yourselves now and unmute yourselves when you wish to speak. Please raise a hand or something when you want to speak. I've got all of you on the screen, so hopefully I'll see you. And so we'll begin. And item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Jan. Hello, Jan.
No, there are no apologies for absence given.
Okay, so at the moment we're missing Councillor Fay and Councillor Hutton's coming back in.
Hello, Councillor Venning and Councillor Fay.
Yeah, indeed. Why on earth does that come up? We've obviously got the gremlins this evening. Okay. Councillor Hutton, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay, that's fine. We've taken apologies, there are none. And at the moment, we're still expecting to see Councillor Venning and Councillor Fay, but we haven't heard from them yet.
Thank you.
So then that brings us to item 2, the minutes of the last meeting. Are you all happy that they're an accurate account of what took place at the last meeting? Yes? All in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Minutes accepted. And then that brings us on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. And I have a declaration to make in item 8B. Yes, application 202396 205 Whitchurch Road. That's my own property. And when it comes to that item, I will withdraw from the meeting and Councillor Ellis will take the chair. And then I might come and rejoin you afterwards. Okay. Are there any other declarations of interest, please? Councillor Smith? You're muted, Barry.
Pushed it twice. Very simply, a number of the applications that are in for planning are submitted by the same architect who is doing my extension at the back.
Okay.
That's all. Other than that, I have no. I've just noticed that his name turns up on it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can I just check with Jan? Jan, would it be helpful if Councillor Smith just, as we go through the applications, just let us know which are the ones where his architect is the architect for the applicant? Yes.
Okay. We'll do.
Good, thank you. Councillor Parker? You're muted, Graham.
Just to help Barry, I think now that you've got your planning permission and your architect is kind of supervising the finished job, then I think it's just something for noting, not for worrying about. That's my view, Jan.
Okay. So that's it for declarations, yes? Well, as usual, if you become aware of anything as we go through the agenda, please let us know as soon as you're aware of it. Okay, item 4, Dartmoor National Park. We've not received anything. And item 5, 2 items here. 5A, to note the response received from Devon County Highways in respect of the adoption of the roundabout at the Callington Road development site. You'll remember we had a detailed note from a resident in the adjacent parish who had all sorts of concerns about that development, but one of them was relating to the roundabout just immediately outside the site. And we resolved to make sure that Highways were aware of it, and in your bundle of papers you will have seen Highways' response to it. I don't know whether anyone has any comments to make. Doesn't look like it, so we'll simply note that document. 5B, West Devon Borough Council licensing policy consultation. Apparently the borough is required to review its licensing policy every so often, and that time has come up, and they have produced a draft document which you've got the link to. And we're being invited, amongst many other people, of course, to make any comments that we feel are appropriate. And it is a long document. I scanned it very, very quickly this afternoon. They have helpfully indicated anything that's new in red font, so you can hone down on the new stuff. Some of that is simply updating, changing dates and the like. But there are some quite lengthy new sections relating to such matters as safeguarding and other things. We have until the 16th of October to provide any feedback. Is that correct, Jan?
That's correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
And we've got at least one more DM&L meeting before then. So my inclination, if you agree, is to say that we'll discuss this again next time, but invite members to have a look at that policy prior to the next meeting and come armed with any comments you feel we should be making. The only thing I noticed of interest, there is one paragraph, 2428, which refers to Public Health England, which of course won't be there very soon, it'll disappear. But there we are. Are you all happy with that? That we'll revisit it next time? Okay, thank you. We can't really do it justice, I don't think, today. So that moves us to item 6, general correspondence, no items received, and item 7, urgent business. Now, under this item, I want to bring forward a start of an appeals process relating to a development that the town council has twice opposed. And this is to build a 3-bedroom dormer bungalow on land adjacent to Hazelin, which is off Butcher Park Hill. Now, there are a couple of things about this. The first one is that this lies immediately to the south of the allotments. And of course, the town council is the landowner for the allotments. And access to this site is along a narrow track off Butcher Park Hill. And the council is the owner of the track. And the allotmenteers and the residents of Hazelin have a right of way across that track. However, looking at the reasons why the borough refused consent, it concurs very much with the opinion we expressed. The two things they mentioned specifically are access to the highway, and anyone who's been up there to have a look will know that it's on a sharp bend, which is coming downhill from the north, from the Brent Tor end. The traffic can be moving quite swiftly. But even worse, it's completely blind to the left, looking downhill towards Tavistock. And in order to exit there, a vehicle has to go across the first half of the carriageway to get to the other side and then rejoin the left-hand side of the road. So you have to go into the oncoming traffic, and for a short while, you're broadside onto the traffic coming down the hill. The developers claim that the improvements to the construction of a footpath, which starts immediately to the north of the lane, has taken away any objection that we might have about presenting a hazard to the highway. We didn't agree with that in our last comment, and the borough doesn't agree with it either. The second issue relates to Buddle Quarry, and that is now the only extant potential source of Herdwick stone. There isn't any other. Herdwick is long since closed. Buddle is not being used at the moment. And the current owners, who are Mill Hill Quarries, say that they have no current intention to reopen it. That, however, is not good enough, because the construction of this house would effectively constrain any future development of that quarry, because it would put a residential property immediately adjacent to the quarry site. And that residential property would be subject to dust and noise from any quarrying that might be going on. So it would actually impair the ability of the quarry to be mined again. Now, in the appeal, the applicant is claiming that the building of the house would be an exempt development. Now, that will have to be argued, I guess, and it relates to the location of the house effectively being within Tavistock and not out in the far countryside. I've had a word with the clerk about this one, because the town council not only is a statutory consultee, but we're also the landowners. And what the clerk has made very clear to me, and he has said this before, if we want to make any comments to the planning inspector, we have to make it very clear in what capacity we're making those comments. And the capacity we would be making those comments would be as a statutory consultee, because anything to do with the town council's function as the landowner would be a civil case and not a planning matter. We also had a little bit of a chat about how we stress the importance of the quarry. And I think it has to go along the lines that Herdwick stone is the principal building stone for the historic buildings in the town. Those buildings falling within the conservation area and the World Heritage Site and being listed for the most part, and that there is no alternative source for the stone. We also need to point out that it is a porous stone. It is not like granite. It will not last forever. The buildings will require maintenance, and from time to time, they may require some new stone to be inserted. And if we can't get Herdwick stone, anything else would look completely out of place and would detract from the heritage value of the buildings. So that's my bit of sort of background for you to think about. And can I invite your thoughts and comments? The question is predominantly, are we going to make a submission to the planning inspector? The submissions we've previously made for this site do form part of the paperwork that goes to the planning inspector. But do we feel we should be doing anything further in response to this appeal? Over to you, Graham. You're muted.
Sorry, would anybody else like to go first? I jumped in too quickly there. Andy.
I'm sorry for everybody for mucking the phones up. I've moved to Bristol to do some removals tomorrow. I think a lot of what you've said is already in the papers, but I think you beautifully stressed the bit about the Herdwick stone and the heritage value potentially of it for the whole of the Tavistock. And I think that's a bit that needs to be put as an extra bit into the submission, because that's more, you've said that better now than in the paperwork I've seen.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right, Andy. The planning inspector is not going to be a Tavistock resident. It'll be someone who may not know the town, and therefore stressing the importance of the stone seems to be a sensible thing to do. I agree with you. Any other comments, please? Pete Squire. You need, yeah.
As a previous resident of Herdwick, I'm somewhat emotionally attached to Herdwick stone. It is a unique rock. It's a granite aureole, and as such is a very porous and poor rock, which easily erodes, and any source of it needs to be strongly maintained. It is a unique and rare building material. It's not a very good building material, but it needs to be kept. So
Yes.
I'm really for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, please? Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I have to declare an interest here as an allotment holder, but I know that people at the allotment have been very, very concerned about this this application a while ago. Nobody's actually raised anything at this point to me, but I don't know if they know that there's an appeal going through. It is very close to the property that is situated halfway up the lane. I think it's called Hasley.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I've got it open on my PC. And I don't see that any of the other issues have changed at all, really. So I don't know quite how they're going to get through it, how on earth they're going to get site access to get up that lane, which is very steep. If anyone has ever driven up to the allotments and back down, if you meet another vehicle on the way, it's just impossible. So it's just, I just can't envisage site access at all.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We originally objected to this application, and I think it's right that we should have a submission to the inspector now. I think that we've got to make our voice heard, and I don't think there's any change in our position, really.
No, I agree. And anyone else? Councillor Parker.
Yeah, can I make 3 points? A question first for Jan. Jan, have we heard anything from Graham Lawrence about the revision of the Tavistock Conservation Area?
I haven't received anything.
Okay, well, I think we might need to chase that up because
you've frozen, Graham. We've lost you. Okay, while we're waiting for Graham to rematerialise, Councillor Smith, you wanted to say something?
Nothing to add to your what you've said earlier, Paul, because I think it just about sums up what we as a council have as interest. One of the things that I know in the area very well, the access in and out of that area, despite the fact the road from the north is improved slightly by the pavement or the access, but seeing people drive in and out of there is an unbelievably frightening operation. It's we get the library, the allotment holders up there. You often find someone driving down and a person who is quite often old or older standing in the middle of the road waving them down. It's a frightening experience because they're not all good at doing things, and that results in a lot of people parking in Redmore Close opposite. But it's not good. I looked at the entrance, I looked at the site a couple of days ago, but there's nothing actually wrong with the house. It's just getting there and getting back again that's the problem. It's not a fun place to go.
Okay.
That was all.
Thank you. Graham, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment.
Okay,
James, Councillor Ellis.
Closed down.
Don't worry, I'll come back to you just a moment.
Of course.
James?
I've got a couple of questions for Leslie, and then I've got one for Graham, if I may.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So one of my questions for Leslie was, in some of the objection letters, some allotment holders intimated that the works traffic would have to cross allotment land. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I just have to think about it. It would come up the path, which is the only access, and then it might well have to go across a bit of allotment land. Yeah, might. Don't quote me on that.
And my other question for you, Leslie, was as part of the appeal, the person that's written the appeal, he's stated that there's already lots of traffic with the allotment. Is that true? Is there lots of cars driving up there and parking at the allotment?
You would get half a dozen maybe at any one time, but it just depends on the time of year, the time of day. So you could end up with, I've been up there when there have been half a dozen cars at least. Right, okay, so, and I've had to reverse into the driveway to go into Hollesley because I've met someone coming up the other way. And that's the only way that you can do it. And it's a steep path to, reverse into.
Yes, and it's narrow as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Which leads me on to my question for Graham and his experience, because obviously we need to go against this. But in the past, with like Butcher Park Hill development, both us and the Borough Council completely objected to it several times. They brought the inspectorate down, who just ignored the voice of Tavistock and built the estate anyway. So what I'm asking basically with Graham, is the appeal that's been written, is that a really good appeal in your opinion that may sway the inspectorate? And should we as a council in another meeting be looking at potentially putting in conditions in case planning is granted?
Those are two really good questions. Going back to Butcher Park Hill, I was at that inquiry myself, and if you recall, it was before the joint local plan. We had an old style local plan that was out of date, so they walked into that. The barrister was an old friend of mine. He just walked into that room and said to the inspector, they haven't got a 5-year land supply. All the policies that they've got are dead and buried, so forget about those. All we're looking at now is the detail of the development. And the Borough Council had to say yes. The boot is on a different foot now. They've got an up-to-date local plan. They've got a 5-year land supply. They meet their housing delivery test, and so they start off from a position of strength. We don't desperately need that house, and therefore it's up to the applicant to show why he should be given planning permission. Slightly more in this case than why the Borough Council why they shouldn't. Our job, and anybody who turns up to an inquiry, into an appeal, their job is to help the inspector. So yes, by all means, think about conditions. Run them past the Borough Council first, because it's the Borough Council who will present the conditions. But what the inspector will say is, I'm going to ask, what if I was to grant permission, what conditions would you want me to place on it? And it always ends up saying, but I'm not saying that I'm going to grant permission. I just want to be ready for when I take the decision. So the answer to your first question is, it isn't a rerun of Butcher Park Hill. The Borough Council is dealing from a position of strength. And the second question is, yes, by all means, think about conditions, but run them past the Borough Council first.
Thank you, Graham.
It's a pleasure.
Jan, I think I saw your hand pop up a little while ago in connection with access to the site.
No, I was only going to, when Councillor Crawford was trying to answer the thing about loss of allotment space, the clerk and I had a meeting on site some time ago with the chairman of the Allotment Association, and I think he felt that at least 4 allotments plots could be lost if it was granted.
Right, okay. Councillor Smith, then Councillor Parker.
Jan, when they said the 4 plots would be lost, was that during the building work or permanently?
Well, at the moment, the lane, as has already been said, is not wide enough to allow building vehicles up there.
No,
And
no,
the developer had originally asked if we would allow them to widen the lane and obviously make it a bit straighter. Well, that would have entailed the loss of the allotment plots.
Okay, lower down at the entrance end.
I think it's the first curve as you go up.
Yeah, that's
quite
the
a high double bank, isn't there?
Yeah, that's fine. One of the things I'd ask, and I know it may be not viable due to the fact that we might end up with a load of solicitors' bills, as the owner of the land, can we just deny access to that lane?
My understanding, Barry, is that isn't a planning matter. That would be a civil matter between the town council in its capacity as landlord and the developers. This is why it's so important that we are very, very careful when we make a submission, that we make it clear that in what capacity we're acting.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, have you finished, Barry?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Thank you. Graham?
Leslie's got her hand up as well. So
Leslie?
Sorry, I'd forgotten that when we looked at this previously, one of the concerns was with the allotment holders was that having access to them might make the land on the other side, and I don't know enough about that bit of land, on the other side of the allotments wanting to be developed, coming forward to be developed. And also it was the question as well about access from Butchers Park Hill estate, because that road, that pavement isn't wide and it's not well lit. There've been complaints about that already. Whether they would want then access, whether that opens up access to that estate as coming through on the allotment land. It's a bit of a minefield, really, I think.
Well, the whole thing's a minefield, but I'll look to Graham for guidance. But it seems to me that we have 2 things we can focus on.
Yeah.
One is the access to Butcher Park Hill, and the other is the quarry, because those are the 2 reasons given in the planning decision, in the officer's report accompanying the planning decision, for refusing consent. And those are the issues that are being contested in the appeal. So all the other things are relevant, but are they relevant to the appeal, Graham?
That's not quite so.
Right. Okay.
I mean, when an appeal's made, the inspector starts what they call de novo. They start all over again from the start.
Right.
The Borough Council, they were the ones who issued the notice of decision, and they are constrained, as you say. If they start straying outside of the reasons for refusal, then they are going to be in a bit of trouble, and they would invite an award of costs against them. We and anybody else who turns up are third parties, and our job is to help the inspector. And if we have information that we think might help the inspector, then we can go wherever we like. James will recall that there were things that came up at Butcher Park Hill that weren't in the notice of decision, but because the people who made it were local residents and town councillors and local businesses, then the inspector allowed it. They want to hear all the evidence. What they don't want to hear is the borough council refusing on one set of grounds and then turning up with a completely different set. They've got. So we can say within reason anything that we like that would help the inspector. Now, Carly's right. Bear in mind that this is a written representation.
Yes.
So there won't be anybody turning up to an appeal. There's nobody arguing. What we'll be doing is putting a statement together as to either information that we want the inspector to have, or argument about how why the application should be refused. And there's no reason why we shouldn't do both. If, as a town council, we want to draw issues to the inspector's attention about loss of allotments, width of the road that we know as landowner, then there's nothing that would stop us putting in a statement as landowner. So we can do that, so long as we distinguish that from our role as a planning committee. So if you wanted to bring that stuff in, it's an easy matter to do it. You just distinguish, this piece of paper is us as a landowner to the inspector, this piece of paper is us acting in a planning capacity. So it could be done.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, right. The reason I asked Jan about the conservation area is that I got hold of a late spring. I got hold of a copy, or I was provided with a copy of the draft conservation area revision, and the proposal was then, presumably is now, to extend the conservation area to include the Buddle Quarry. And the reason for that is that Buddle Quarry is the last potential source of Herdwick stone, and Herdwick stone has national importance. So it is worth protecting from an historic point of view. And that is one of the reasons why conservation area can be declared. It would be definitely worth building up and getting behind Graham Lawrence's case, because I'm sure Graham will provide all the help he can on the nature and status of the quarry. So that's one issue. Landowner I've dealt with. Oh, the other one is, this question of exempt. Exempt is it's a curious little bit of planning where you've got a minerals protection area. The applicant can argue that some developments are exempt from being from consultation with the Devon County Council, and that's what I just checked. I can't see how they're going to claim an exemption, but it's worth us having a look at that. Not that we can bring any expert opinion to it, but I know how these things work. The Borough Council will pretty well use its officer's report as the basis, and because they haven't got a huge amount of resources, they won't do a great deal of extra work. I'm reasonably sure about that. If there is a case on exemption, then we would probably need to get the county involved and just say, can you have a look at this and do a quick note for the inspector? Otherwise, at that point, we'll be unopposed.
The Devon County Council have already submitted a letter of objection to West Devon Borough Council, and that is included in the bundle that's going to the sector.
That's fine. I wasn't aware of that. That's good. Okay, but yeah, and yeah, if whoever is nominated, not me, to prepare. I'm up to my neck at the moment, as you know, Chairman. But whoever's nominated, I'm very, very happy to help them frame and structure and phrase the statement to the inspector.
Okay. Unless there's somebody busting a gut to volunteer to draft a response, doesn't look like it, then in my capacity as chairman, I take it on myself to do the first draft.
That's fine. I'll help you with that. Now, if we wish, oh, don't you smile, Councillor Hutton. If we do choose to put in a statement as landowner as well, bringing stuff that is in the council's knowledge as landowner rather than as planning, who would be the appropriate person to put that statement together? It seems to me that the chairman of budget and policy might be the appropriate person.
Okay.
Told you not to smile.
Okay.
Do we want to separate them? Is it easier if you do the thing, Paul, and make it very clear?
I think what I'd like to do, Andy, is I will certainly get started on a document in our capacity as statutory consultee. And in that, I will make the point that we don't consider that anything has changed to make us change our opinion as expressed on 2 occasions previously. I will go to town over the Herdwick Stone story. I will also pick up on that. Who was it telling me? Was it Leslie? That scary idea of people standing in the middle of that busy road, helping people to get out of the lane. I mean, that just strikes me as being insane. The last time the Highways Authority disregarded our comment about safety on the highway, at the very spot where they disregarded it, a car rolled over onto its roof about 2 days later. So, you know, I think we do know something about our local roads, and I think, you know, we can say something about it.
And nobody would criticise us for doing that, although they would criticise the Borough Council if they tried it.
Yeah. Okay, so I will do that. I will have a word with the clerk about a response as the landowner before making any final decisions. We've got a bit of time.
30th September.
The 16th of, no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. 30th of September. Yeah, thank you, Graham. So we have got a bit of time. We've got time to do it properly, and that's the way we'll go forward. Okay, and what I'll try to do is to bring a document to this committee for the next meeting on the 22nd of September.
If you like, Chairman, I'll send you one of my short old ones to just give you an idea of the structure.
Okay, thank you. Anything further to be said on this item? Okay, let's move on then. Thank you very much indeed. I think that was a useful discussion. So we move on to item 8, planning applications. Firstly, 8A, planning decisions. There was one where the borough disagreed with us. And I'll be absolutely honest, I haven't been to the officer's report, so I don't know why. This was 8 Grenville Drive, householder application for side extension and new entrance porch. We supported it, but it's been refused. James.
Yeah, Chairman, I believe it was refused because a couple of reasons. One was the extension made the house look like a terrace. The extension was of a similar size, so you couldn't differentiate the extension from the rest of the house.
Right.
And the other one was it gave the impression of a terraced house because of the size of it and how far it extended out to the boundary. And that's why they refused it.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, I don't think there were any disagreements. So are you happy for us to look at new applications? So item 8B, development applications. Starting with Overdeer Down Road. This is an application to do some tree work on an oak tree with a TPO on it. Do you wish to discuss this, or shall we refer it? Refer? Okay, thank you. So the next one is 54 Westmore Park. Householder application to convert an existing garage, single-story infill extension to rear and other alterations. I noticed on the planning portal there was a letter of support from number 56, but I couldn't work out using Google whether that was to the left or to the right of the index property. Any comments?
It will be to the left, downhill.
Okay, in which case that's the one that's closest to 54. So it looks as though they've got the neighbour on board.
I saw no problem with this one particularly.
No. Graham?
Yeah, I actually looked at a few of these extensions, and they're all beginning to look alike. No matter which architect does them, but the quality of them generally seems to be getting really good. If it helps, I'll move to we support.
Okay, everyone in agreement with that? So we support, thank you. Okay, that brings us to 1 St John's, Deer Park Lane, and some work to hedges and a couple of lime trees. Does anybody wish to discuss these? Mrs. Johnson. You're muted. That's better.
Thank you. I was very pleased to see that the 2 hedges that are proposed to be removed are both going to be replaced, which I thought was a positive step. And I thought the work on the lime tree also looked okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Happy to refer?
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. So the next one is 2 Arrimore Gardens. Householder application for extension and remodeling. So this involves a 2-story extension at the side of the property and a single story at the rear. Any comments? No, all happy? Okay, so we'll support that. Okay, thank you very much. I thought the next one was rather of historic interest, actually. Magistrates Court, Bedford Square. Application for approval of details reserved by conditions 3 and 4. These both related to moving the Duke. And of course he's moved.
So why have we got it now?
Yeah.
Don't ask me, I'm only the chairman. I guess it's called inertia. So condition 3 was that there had to be a detailed method statement about how they're going to move him. And 4 was the statue had to be assessed by a conservator prior to moving. And both of those were done. Councillor Parker.
Yes, can I propose that we object, that we don't agree to the methodology of moving him, that he be taken back to his original place before we've had chance to consider it.
I'm going to move on to the next application. Okay. 19 Ordulph Road, and this is tree work on trees with TPOs. Any comments? Happy to refer.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the next one, 205 Whitchurch Road. It's time for me to take a pause. Jan, are you going to throw me out? And I'll hand over to James.
Jan? Oh, sorry, it was a wrong question.
I haven't gone yet.
No.
We're all going to say no anyway.
Okay.
Why don't you just leave the room?
Yeah, go and make a cup of tea.
I'll be able to hear you.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. We're going to refuse it anyway.
I'm leaving the meeting now. He says. So Jan is.
There we go.
Right. So just for the members of the public, although Councillor Ward is the chairman of this committee, we are going to take the plan purely for its merits. And if we have any material concerns, then obviously we'll raise those. So does anyone have any points for this plan? Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you. I thought it was a good application, replacing like for like or improving what was there already. So I thought it was a good application which we should support.
James?
Yeah, Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I mean, I think we ought to go just a touch further, partly because it's Councillor Ward, and we need to show the public that we have properly considered it, but partly because I think we should draw a distinction, particularly in conservation areas. I absolutely agree with what Councillor Johnson said, particularly the use of timber windows, the use of cast iron downpipes, careful use of original slates and identical replacement. I mean, that's how you treat a building in a conservation area. And I'm stressing that because there are other cases where that's not quite so. So, I mean, my own view is that we should make a note welcoming the use of those specific materials and noting the quality of the work when we support. And I would certainly move support.
Thank you. Anyone else got any other points? I thought it was an excellent application. I thought that was an absolute blueprint of what we want to see in the conservation area. Clearly, a lot of work has been gone into where potential reuse of stuff, and if not sourcing, very similar.
Perfect.
And we had the all important heritage statement that we harp on about for every meeting that we want to see. So, if everyone's happy to support, have a show of hands, please. All right, thank you very much. I'll wait for Councillor Ward to rejoin. I see you back in the chair, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Okay, so the next one then is Travis Perkins, Unit 1 to 7, Tavistock Retail Park, regularising stock storage heights and increasing the overall amount of car parking provided on site. As far as I can see, this involves increasing the height of the storage racks, creates one new parking space only, and a repainting job using Travis Perkins' current colour scheme. Anybody got anything to say about this one? Thumbs up from Councillor Squire. Yeah, all happy? Yes. Okay, so we'll support that then.
Definitely.
Okay, Jen? Right, 219 Whitchurch Road, householder application for proposed two-storey side extension to existing dwelling And this is a resubmission of a previous application that this committee opposed. This property falls, I think, within the Whitchurch conservation area. So who would like to start the discussion? Councillor Ellis, please.
Thank you. I'm of a mind to maybe go with a neutral view, just simply because of the reason why the one that Grenville Drive was refused was it was a similar size. They refused it because it didn't differentiate from extension from main property. And this one, again, looking at the plans, it doesn't really differentiate from the extension from the house. It's not set back, it's of a similar size to the house. So I'm sort of erring on the side of neutral, or
I think it is set back slightly, actually.
right.
Yeah. Any other comments, please? Councillor Hutton.
Similar to James, it just looked too big to me, did this, for the actual extension size. And there was, of course, a letter of rejection as well from a neighbour.
Yes.
I think is important. So I'm going along with James here. I think we have a neutral view or we oppose it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith?
The letter of objection that came through said they were going to lose light and things like this. There's the next premises, the next cottage along is a sensible space away. There's a conservatory there, then about another 6 foot of garden. Although I do think that looking at it, it's going to block out his light and join the two buildings up together, even though there's a gap in between. But I think I'd balance it on a neutral view, virtually. Let the council work out what's good and bad about that rather than us. But I would like to preserve the locality and the buildings that are there.
Okay. Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you're correct. It's the building is in the conservation area. In fact, it's the conservation area boundary is specifically drawn along the road to include this group of buildings.
Yes.
Now, you'll recall that we've had this one before.
Yes.
Councillor Smith, you weren't on the committee then, and we went into the question of light loss in some depth, and in the end, we decided that given the orientation of the buildings, in fact, this extension wouldn't affect light in the garden of the neighbour significantly at all. So we'd have to tread carefully if we went along the grounds of light loss. What we objected to last time was the windows, and we asked that the windows be returned to a uniform state along the lines of the original windows, and the widening of the gap in the wall. Now, the widening of the gate in the wall has gone, and what we're left with is, well, as James says, in conservation terms, in a conservation area, it is a different building. It's no longer what it was. It's pretty well double the size in terms of its impact on the road. If we believe that is harmful to the character and appearance of the conservation area, and I could make a case for that, then that's not a case for neutral view. That's a case for objection. The other problem that I have with it is that every window, new and old, is to be UPVC. Now that's not a line that West Devon promotes in conservation areas, and you know, we've had a discussion in this committee before about the use of traditional materials, cast iron, slate, wooden windows. I mean, people will say that you can't get properly glazed wooden windows. Of course you can, and you can get secondary glazing as well. So I would add to James's view an objection against the extensive use of UPVC rather than natural materials. Which is interesting as well, because if you look at the design and access statement, it'll tell you that the new door is to be timber. Look at the drawing, it'll tell you that it's to be UPVC. So I think there are two angles to attack this one from. Let the neighbour, I mean, obviously don't come out one way or the other with the neighbour, because we don't live there, but the harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area through the bulk of the building and through the extensive use of PVC, I think are totally valid objections.
Okay, thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, I'm just beginning to wonder if I read this, because I was a bit taken, as you said, Graham, about the UPVC windows. But am I right in thinking that Graham Lawrence has been contacted and agreed that it's in keeping with the conservation area? Did I read that?
Just because somebody else makes a mistake, there's an old rule in planning. Just because somebody else makes a mistake doesn't mean to say you have to make the same one.
But I'm just thinking that might well come up. You know, it's and he's West Devon, isn't he? So yeah. Okay, thank you.
This one is probably contentious enough locally, with the town council going one way, Graham Lawrence the other, for it to be called into committee.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'd also like to make a comment about the design. I'm really not at all sure about that projecting entrance porch with the gable over it, because there is nothing like that in that row of cottages, in that whole row of cottages. And it just seems to me to be incongruous given the history of those buildings. They would not have had a porch like that, any of them. And it just doesn't look right to me.
In that case, could I move then, Chair, that we object on 3 grounds. One, the scale of the extension in terms of its bulk, height and massing will harm the character and appearance of the conservation area. 2, that the detailing of the extension, including an incongruous projection where the porch is, also harms the character and appearance of the conservation area. And 3, that the materials, namely the extensive use of UPVC on a frontage, on the main road frontage of the conservation area, also harms the character and appearance of the conservation area. And that brings it in conflict with the JLP and with the National Planning Policy Framework.
Now, we've got a proposal. Okay, it looks as though you're all in favour. Yes? Anybody not? Councillor Squire.
I would go with a neutral view myself, but that's my viewpoint.
Sure, fair enough. Okay. But I think enough hands went up there for us to say that that's carried.
Did I speak slowly enough there, Jan?
Yep, you've got what you need. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. So we now come to 46 Carpenter Way, where they want to build a garage.
Excuse me.
Firstly, I couldn't find Carpenter Way on Google. Where is it? Anne?
I think it's on the Butcher Park Hill estate.
Butcher Park Hill. It's one of the new ones.
Ah, that's why it's not showing up then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any comments? Graham?
Yeah, if you look at Google Earth and look at Street View, you can see that there's a huge gap between the two properties. It is completely paved over. It's a brand new house.
Yes.
For a parking area, it's designed for external parking. This garage, I think, defy anybody to get a car in through that door. There's a lovely door going out into the garden. It takes up half the garden. I mean, let's be honest. It's not a garage. It's a garden room. The only reason I suspect that it's come as a planning application is I think it's too high, too close to the next door boundary. Otherwise, it would be permitted development. I don't like people kind of sneaking one thing in the guise of another. But the question is, does it do any harm? Frankly, I can't see that it does.
Okay. Leslie?
I was concerned about the amount of reduction on garden, and that's about future, owners as such, really. And I didn't think about it being a garden room as such, but I just sort of wondered why they just don't build it on the driveway, really. But I don't know what the angle is and things. But yeah, to lose that much of the garden, I didn't sit comfortably with me.
Airbnb like access to grass.
Okay, so James and then Anne.
I didn't have an issue with this garage garden room at all. It's actually very similar to the design of the garage that's on my property, set back into the garden. So you do lose a bit of garden. I don't know why these people didn't buy a house with a garage in the first place. But I mean, to address Leslie's concerns, I guess, if you're worried about having a big garden, you wouldn't buy that property. So I haven't got any objections at all against it. We support it, really.
Anne?
An observation, when you're building garages on garden and hard standing areas, that's less water that can soak away into the ground. Butcher Park Hill has a real problem with a lot of water coming down it. It'd be just the same as happened to Down Road when they built all over a Down Road, and you get excess flooding further down the road. If could this be the start of many garages, garden rooms, or whatever up at Butcher Park Hill?
Okay. Barry?
The garden that's behind this house sort of kicks over to the left, so it's much larger than the house on the left-hand side, but it's roughly 70% of the footprint of the house. It's an enormous garage. I'm trying to work out what they're going to use it for other than putting a car into. I wonder whether they're going to use it for business purposes. That was one of the things. It's down under Jordan Tillier and Regan West. Not that that should mean anything. It just seems a vast garage, unless they got sort of many hobbies and other bits and pieces like that. It's very large in the relationship to the houses, which are quite tiny. That was it. It seemed strange to me. It was a extremely large piece of building for the area. That was all.
James and then Leslie.
Yeah, just a quick one for Barry. When it comes to doing your planning training, you'll actually get told that you cannot assume what a plan may become. You can only assume what the plan is telling you it is going to be. So just because we assume it may become something, we can't do it. Equally, I don't know anyone on my estate that parks in their garage. It's all used for storage. So mine's a dive store and a camping store. The car sits on the street.
Yeah,
that's fine, James. I appreciate that, but as I'm talking among friends, although it's public, I'm working on the basis that if you've got a garage that size and you're not going to put a car in it, because Graham's already said you won't get a car in there, not through the garage size. What other purposes are they going to use it for? Instead of that,
I think I agree with James that we shouldn't be speculating on matters like that.
No, I'm not speculating. Yeah. I'm just saying that looking at it, it seems a strange application for something that large. If they want a garage that big, that's fine. It's not my place to do it.
Just bear in mind, if we were to want to oppose this, we'd have to oppose it on material planning.
On a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Leslie, I think you wanted to say something, and then Graham.
Yes, I did, because I think Anne made a really, really pertinent point there about the effects of water on landfill, as not landfill, but land that's been concreted over. And as a resident of Bannerwell Street, and that there were concerns at the time about the water runoff from that development. And just thinking about the rain last week, I think it was pretty historic, perhaps last week, as it was running down the road, and it was like trying to cross a river to get across the road to my car. I wouldn't want anything else to sort of exacerbate that, really. So I wouldn't want to be opening the floodgates, as Anne said, to other people building more sort of garages on that sort of land.
Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Make 2 points. I mean, this question of what could it be used for if not a garage. I mean, the answer is very clear that unless there's a condition imposed that says this will be used as a garage and for no other purposes, then it can be used for anything that's associated with the house. So it could be a guest room, it could be Airbnb, it could be a home office. And that none of that would require planning permission. And you are right that we shouldn't be speculating about what they want to use it for, because we all use our garages for different purposes. Mine's a woodwork shop. But that's the range of things that you could use it for. What you can't use it for is something that would need a change of use.
Yeah.
Going back to Anne's point, now that is, I confess that's where I was going when I said that there's already a very large area of paving between those two houses. And I don't know enough about the planning permission, but it doesn't look permeable to me. Therefore, a building as big as this with a roof as big as this will produce a lot of hard surface that isn't soaking away. So, I mean, it's a good point. And if we want to make that point, then there's two ways of doing it. Either we can object on the grounds that it will cause what do they call it? Flooding downhill. That the stormwater drainage will be inadequate, or we could support, subject to a satisfactory demonstration that stormwater can be adequately dealt with. Now, I know that West Devon's borough's drainage engineer is absolutely red hot on something like that, and he would, one way or the other, I think he would welcome support from the town council on that. So I think it's a good point, and it could be used either way, to as a reason for objection or as a condition on support.
Okay, thank you. I guess the point is that loss of part of one garden may not make a big difference, but if it's an accumulative problem with other properties following suit, then it could add up to quite a lot, couldn't it, in due course?
But that's where your planning training will tell you that precedent isn't refusing on the grounds that it will cause a precedent wouldn't do it. But if we you do it on the grounds of a real material planning issue, drainage, stormwater discharge, then Anne has a really good point.
Yeah. Okay, so actually we do have a third option, which is to adopt a neutral position, but to express the concern about the drainage.
If we are really worried about the potential for more of this to happen, Chair, I think we should take one of the two positive or negative options.
Definitive options, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do the rest of you feel? How do you want to deal with this? James?
I feel we go with Councillor Parker's second option of we support and highlight the drainage issue. For instance, my garage on my estate drains straight into the sewerage outlet. It's drained straight away, so there's no runoff. I think if we highlight that we want the drainage to be good and support it.
Yeah,
I feel the same.
Okay. I think one of the problems, James, is that the stormwater drains already don't cope with the volume of water coming down them. And Bannerwell Street is a very good example of that, where manholes lift and all the rest of it. Yeah, Graham.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, what we need to do then is to refer to an acceptable form of sustainable drainage, which usually is putting a tank in the ground that holds the water until the rain has stopped and then releases the water at greenfield rates into the drain. So if we make the reference to sustainable drainage system, then that should cover the point.
So if we propose something like that, we support it, subject to the condition that there is adequate stormwater drainage. Any other words we need to put in there, or will that cover it?
You could actually use the words an adequate sustainable drainage system to manage stormwater runoff.
That sounds good. So so we support, subject to confirmation, that there is an adequate sustainable drainage system capable of dealing with the increased stormwater runoff. Thank you. Just wait and see when Jan's happy. Okay, thank you. So we then go on to Beach Close. And this seems to be an application from 4 properties in Beach Close relating to tree work. Do you wish to discuss any of this? Shall we refer? Thank you. And then 14 Willow Road. Again, it's tree work. Do you wish to discuss any of these? Okay, in which case we'll refer that one to. Which brings us to the last application for this evening, 40 Drake Gardens. Householder application for rear extension to include ensuite bedroom on first floor, extended kitchen, utility room, and WC on ground floor. Any comments? Leslie?
I thought this was quite big. And I don't know about it looking like a terrace necessarily, but it does overshadow the neighbour's property. They seem to say that it wasn't, but it did look like it to me quite considerably. And I think I would be objecting if someone put an extension like that up next door to me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I have to say I had the same feeling, Leslie, when I looked at the diagrams. It was helpful to have those diagrams illustrating shadow patterns at different times of the day. And it did seem as though at times there was quite a lot of additional shadow being cast by the proposed extension. But there's no objections on the website at the moment. Graham? You're muted.
Yep. I just reinforce, Chair, that loss of light to amenity areas is a valid planning reason, a valid material consideration. So if you wanted to follow that up on the evidence of those drawings, that would be perfectly acceptable.
Okay. Any final comments? Okay, what do you want to do?
Can I move that we object on the ground of loss of light to the neighbour?
Any alternative views? So all in favour, please show. Okay, so we oppose that on those grounds. Okay, that brings us to the end of the applications and the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions. We meet again as this committee on the 22nd of September. And if I might just remind you to please try to have a look at the licensing policy consultation, because that will be on the agenda again next time. Thank you very much. Enjoy what's left of the evening.
Thank you, Chairman. That's good.
Thank you, everybody. Good
Cheerio.
night.
Bye. Thank you, Jan, for your help.
Thanks, Jan. Safe home.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.